but David and I met, what? It's about 3-4 years ago.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time that we met David, he wasn't quite sure what his role was going to be and what he was up to and what he was doing. And over the last 4 years, I've seen him blossom as a professional and as a speaker. And from what people tell me, you've always been a wonderful actor. So you've been able to pull the wool over people's eyes rather well. But David has been very gracious to be very flexible in the dates that we have been trying to schedule for, because we've been trying to do this room thing. But it is not anything that I take pride in telling you that I'm not going to be able to stay for his presentation, but obviously I'm pleased that it's going to be taped so that hopefully we'll get a chance to look at it later. But you're in for a real treat, and all I can do is tell you that David is a good friend and he's a good professional, and knows most of us at EBITDA Partners pretty well. So we're happy to be able to give him the opportunity to tell you what you need to hear. So with that, we'll give you David.
All right, thanks, Mike. Hey, everybody. Hi there. All right, so I want to start with a question. Why are we here? Why do we do this? Why do we get together in rooms and sit in chairs and then look up here and have somebody speak about some topic? Think about that for a little while. I'm going to come back to that question in a bit, but why do we do that? We tend to think that this is a great way to learn or something, but we're all part of lots of networking groups and groups that get together and somebody's a speaker and they get up here and they start talking and we sort of, go from there and things roll out and we have an experience for 90 minutes. Why do we do that? It's something that's, a lot of you, I'm sure a lot of you give presentations, right? Do a lot of you give presentations in your work? Okay, so think about for a minute, and I'm going to come back to this too, think about a presentation that you have to give regularly, or one that you have that's coming up that's important. Think of particularly high stakes presentations, things where there's something on the line and you want people's mind to be changed or move them to action or something like that. So think about something that you've got that you do as a speaker. It really should be something that you all do to build your business. It's a great way to build your business. There's a lot of places like EBITDA Partners around that are looking for speakers to come in and talk for an hour, 90 minutes. Like I say, we do this all the time. I'm just kind of asking you why. We do it to build our business and things like that, but think about what other reasons that we do. Why do we gather together and do this? Now, I work with a lot of people on speaking, presenting, and other communication skills-oriented things. And here's the thing that I find. Now, listen, look at this. Mike introduced me. He was standing here, right? And I was standing over there. So there's about 12 feet of floor space here to cover. And there's something about that 12 feet of floor space that freaks people out. It just freaks them out. I work with people all the time, and this is what happens. They're over here, like this, and they might be, prior to the presentation, they're like talking with people, and they're all friendly and nice, and they're loose, and they're, they've got a personality. Then it's their turn to present, and they cover that 12 feet of floor space, and their whole body just tenses up, and then they get out here, and it's like, hello, I have a lot of information you didn't ask for. I'm going to spend a huge amount of time covering it. I have many slides. I have a rather stern expression on my face, which is how you know I'm a professional. I'm serious about what I do. And they go through all of their whole presentation, and then they go back over here at the end and they go, oh, that was terrible. I was so nervous out there. And they act like this. I'm so nervous. I don't know, can I do anything to get better at that? I'm just so nervous when I get out there. And you're like, well, it's because you're not acting like yourself at all when you get out here. But I see this all the time in presentation classes. Someone's literally sitting in a chair a few feet from the spot they need to speak, and they come over here and they act like a completely different person. So I think that it's important that we look at why that happens and how it happens and how to get better at it. Would you all like to be a little bit better at stuff like that? Or maybe people that you work with to be better at this? Yeah? All right, I'm going to give you some tips today on how everybody can be a little better at this, covering that 12 feet of floor space and being themselves and polished and put together and still authentic and organized and personable and everything when you get over here. Would you all like to hear about that? Well, great. And at the end of today, I'm going to give you an opportunity to take a first step or two toward getting better at it, okay? So like I said a minute ago, I'm going to talk about, this is a presentation about presentations. And it's really just got two parts. I'm going to talk about preparation, and I'm going to talk about performance. And all this is to help you give you tips to get over your fear of presenting, if you have it, or the people you work with. Be better organized and be more authentic when it comes time to do presentations. And I'm not talking always about standing up in front of a room with a PowerPoint and everything. This can be presentations that are one-on-one with a client, 1-on-3. It can be you and a board of directors. It can be anything. But all of this, when you have to prepare something in advance and then present it in a way that looks together, that looks like you mean it, and gets a result, that's the kind of thing that I work on with people, and that's the kind of thing I feel could be done, everyone could improve on this, all right? All right, so here's a little bit about my background. Mike sort of just referred to this slightly, but I was classically trained as an actor. I went to London Academy of Music and Dramatic Art and Northwestern University, studying nothing but theater, the art of acting and directing. I ended up being a director as well. I just directed Romeo and Juliet for Park Square Theater. So I still work today as an actor and as a director in the arts, all right? And I got to a point at about, in my late 30s where I went, oh, look, I have a wife and children. What do you know? That takes some money to support that. And so I went out and went, well, what else can I do? And I was in a Hartford Life Insurance they've now closed down this division, but they had an individual life division, a segment of it, which was called Mortgage Protection Division. And this is a pretty widespread national thing. I did a bunch of videos for them as an actor. As an actor, you're in videos all the time. You're being called by your agent all the time to, can you just be an expert in such and such? And of course, you're not an expert in this thing, but they give you lines to say, and then you are an expert for the duration of the film. So I did 3 of these, and at the end of the third one, I was just doing ear prompt. It was just in my ear, and I was speaking lines. At the end of the third one, or during the filming of the third one, the VP of marketing comes up to me and says, hey, you're so convincing in these videos. We send them around the whole country to teach guys about what's in the presentation, but you're so good and convincing. The managers also tell them, can you be like the guy in the video? He's so convincing. And he says, so would you like to come to London for our national sales convention and teach our guys about being convincing like you are? Now the thing is, at the time I had never done anything like that at all. In fact, at the moment he asked me that, I was taking a break from playing Oberon in a production of Midsummer Night's Dream. I was like, I don't know what the guy's even talking about. And of course I looked him straight in the eye and said, yes, I'll do that, sir. Yes, I will. I will do that very thing. I kind of thought he'd never call again. Well, 6 months later he calls and, well, we're ready to start planning that thing. So I put together a curriculum based on how I had taught actors to be better actors, but extracting things that had to do with using verse and doing comic moments and things, and just took the parts out that I thought would be applicable to insurance salesmen. And I went to London, did this thing, and they all wanted me to come around the country and teach their guys about how, acting skills are very similar to sales skills. That was about 15 years ago, and I just started rolling it out and doing more of that kind of thing. And I've worked with all kinds of sales, marketing, all kinds of nonprofit groups. And as a result of the group that Mike and I are in, I also got hooked up with a bunch of lawyers. Yeah, I know. But it's been awesome. I'm leaving tomorrow. I teach a class at Loyola School of Law now in Chicago on this very subject. So it's got a wide-ranging, applicability. But it all comes down to the same skills, which are very similar to how actors engage audiences. It's some of the very same skills. Now, when I started out doing this, when I started, I'm going to have to network to build this thing, I started going to events like this. And I'd see people presenting, and I'd be like, what are they doing? Why are they acting like, why are they doing it that way? And then I had to learn how to do it, and even though I had years of experience as an actor, I still got up there and was kind of awkward myself. This is not natural, We don't just naturally congregate in groups with PowerPoint screens. I mean, it's not natural at all. You have to learn how to be natural at this. It doesn't just come to you one day. People aren't just born doing this. You have to learn how to do this. And even with all my acting background, it was difficult to learn how to do it. So I want to turn this question back to you again, as I started out with. Why do we do this? Give me some answers. Why do we get together and do this?
Share knowledge.
To share knowledge. What do we get out of these presentations? Tell me that.
Things I didn't know before necessarily.
Things you didn't know before. Great. Anything else? Yeah.
Inspiration.
Inspiration. Nice.
I actually didn't come here to listen to you. I came here to meet some of the other people here.
Oh, so
You just happened to be this.
you're just waiting for this to be over so you can go back to networking. I know how that feels. I do know how that feels. Yes, sir, in the white behind. To improve your skill levels. Great. Anybody on this side of the room like to chime in at all? Yes.
Well, I think there's something about the human interaction. It's the oldest, we used to sit around fires 10,000 years ago or 100,000 years ago and hear stories told. That's how information was passed and culture was passed
Yeah.
to the whole tribe. So I think this is very natural.
So
to have
today-
somebody
to-
talk to a group.
Today we are a tribe. And you're right, it is natural in that sense. Yeah. We've turned it into something that doesn't feel exactly natural for the speaker. That's kind of what I mean by that. But you're right, people gathering together and learning is as old as time. Usually we think of it as getting information. The first few things that were said when I asked that question had to do with like getting knowledge, sharing knowledge, and getting information. Then we moved into things like inspiration and stuff like that. But usually when I talk to people about presentations, they think, well, it's a way to get information to other people. And we come to these things thinking, I'm going to learn some information, I'm going to get some information. We have this sense, I think this has to do with something having to do with the culture at the place it's at right now. We tend to think of it as downloading. I'm going to go and download a bunch of information into my brain at this presentation and walk away with something I didn't have when I walked in. And we tend to stop when we're putting together our presentations, we tend to stop with that. We go, well, I need to get my information together and then give it to the people and then done. But here's the thing, that's why they end up dull so often. Because the speaker has only thought of it as putting information together and then giving information to you. And that's really not enough to liven up the event so that something else happens in addition to getting information. Okay? And I'm going to suggest that is insight. The information, yes, you need to impart information to each other. But what makes it come alive is when there's insight with it. When the speaker is saying, in my opinion, I feel that this is important. I think that this is important or that is important. Rather than just, I know these facts to be true and verifiable. I mean, that's safer. That's safer. You feel like, well, I have credibility because I'm saying true facts. And yes, in fact, you are, but a lot of people get bored with that because they want the human being. The whole thing about the tribe around the fire, that's hearing somebody be a human being and give their angle on what the information is, what they feel about it. That's why we're so attracted to, talking head TV shows and there's barely a news channel anymore. It's just sheer opinion. It's sheer angle. And you're hard pressed to find where's the actual information in here. Because we really do love that. Now, I think the news channels have taken it to a ridiculous degree, a lot of them. But when it comes to presenting in rooms like this, we tend to be very dry and we tend to not really give our opinion on it. We just want to give the information. So I'm going to encourage you to use the words I believe or I think or in my opinion. Put those into your presentation, and that should be the first thing you think of when you put it together. Now let me ask you this. Is anyone okay when you do a presentation, are you okay when people don't retain anything that you said? How many people would say? You okay with that? No? How about, are you okay with when people do not take any action after hearing you speak or coming to your sales presentation? Okay with that? Of course not. So I would say in addition to providing insight, which I think is really the number one, before you even begin putting together the presentation, just think I want to make sure it's more than just information, it's also insight, that we are maximizing, we are building the presentation so it maximizes retention. In other words, don't say to yourself, well, there's going to be a handout with all the information, or they can just get the PowerPoint deck from me later. If that's the case, why don't you just email them the PowerPoint deck in the first place and not bother getting them in a room with you? Okay? I mean, if it's just about giving them information and nothing else, that they have to look at on a piece of paper, try harder, because you can build it in a way that maximizes retention. And then second to that, inspires action. So it's just not inert, where people come into a room and hear information. They actually hear information that they need to take action on. And that, for everybody in the room's in some form of sales. The action you want is for them to, buy the service, sign on with you in some way. When I talk to lawyers, they're not usually, I don't talk to them in the capacity of selling their services. I talk to them in the capacity of getting juries to award verdicts that they want. So they're not asking for buy-in in a monetary way, but they're asking, of course, for a very specific action to happen. They want this particular verdict. And I am amazed by how they will build opening statements that do not lead to that at all. And at the very end of the trial, so I'd like a not guilty verdict, please. I mean, not all of them, but often you get, it has to be built from the very beginning how you're going to get them to retain the information and take action at the end of it. Okay? So those three things before we even begin preparing. And then one more thing I would say, the idea of playing a role. Now Mike jokingly said something about I'm really good at faking things because I'm an actor. Well, sure. But but I don't, a good actor does not think of what they do on stage as faking something. A good actor thinks of it as being real in the moment, even though you're speaking words that Tennessee Williams wrote or Shakespeare wrote. And your name is Hamlet, and your whole thing is you want to kill your uncle. Like, most of us don't really relate to that from life. But nonetheless, you bring something real and true and authentic to it, even though you're playing a role. So a role is simply just a collection of characteristics that you take on for a situation. So when you come here in front of an audience and are the speaker, what role are you playing? Most people I work with don't think of this, so they end up with generic professional, which is the thing I did for, I am just generic professional person. And which means especially in the Midwest, means my lips are kind of tight like this, and look at the floor a lot because I'm serious. So we end up with no role. But if you do try and play a role, sometimes it might be these kinds of things. Are you playing the expert? Are you playing the friend? Are you playing the conduit? So if you're playing the expert, sometimes it can be a little bit condescending. I know more than you do. I know things that you don't know, and I'm going to tell you things that you don't know and you need to know. So that doesn't really work. If you're playing the friend, it can be like, I'm just super friendly. I didn't really put much together for today, but I'm really friendly and nice. So why don't we just have a conversation? Okay? And sometimes that can go awry because it feels good to the speaker, but it doesn't add up to much for the audience. Or like I've been doing, the conduit. I am just here to pass along information on which I have no opinion whatsoever. And there's sort of an emptiness to it. So I'm going to suggest to you the same way I suggest to litigators. Play the guide. Think of yourself as somebody who is guiding the audience from where they are to where you want them to go. That if you think of it that way, it's gracious, it's respectful, it's active, it's authoritative, but it's not commanding in the way like I'm an expert and you're not is. It's I know more about this subject than you do because it's my specialty, but I am open to everyone in this room moving in this direction with me. Okay, you see what I'm saying? It's a mindset. The mindset of being the guide rather than just sort of nothing or one of these roles that can end up going kind of negative. All right? So you think of your presentations as having insight, being built for retention and action, and then you think of yourself as playing the role of the guide, and all that stuff is what's the foundation underneath preparing the presentation. Now, most people when they prepare a presentation, and I'm not asking you to raise your hands because you just know. You can just know this privately. Do you just, when you're asked to give a presentation and you know what's coming up, what's the first thing you do? Go to your computer and start putting together the PowerPoint deck? Often that's the first thing, it's one of the first steps people do. And when I work with them, they'll say, yeah, I have a presentation ready, here it is. And they hand me the PowerPoint deck. And I always say, but the PowerPoint is not the presentation. That's a recent thing that we sort of mesh those two words together. the word presentation and the word PowerPoint mean the same thing. The presentation is different. It's separate from the PowerPoint. This should support you, not be the presentation. And when you think of it as being the presentation, that's how you get people going, slide number 3, let me read it to you. I know you can read, but I want to demonstrate that so can I. And if you think, but this all comes from at the outset, how are you even preparing the thing in the first place? When you sit down to do it, what's the first steps you take? And I'm going to suggest not going directly to the computer and opening up PowerPoint and saying, what's my first slide going to be? Because as soon as you do that, you're thinking in a very logical, sequential, forward, predictable way. And that's, again, super easy for you, the presenter. That's the easiest thing you can do, is sit down and start doing it the first thing I need to tell them is this. The second thing I need to tell them is this. The third thing I would just kind of want to put in because I think it's neat should be there. And then the fourth thing, and it starts to become very predictable, and that's how audiences get bored because they know where it's going. They're ahead of you. And slides go up there where they can read. You're saying, well, you have 8 points up there, and you're reading you're talking about number 3, and they're like, I know, I can read it, and I'm also on to number 8 by now. Okay, so when you prepare, I'm going to just say how you prepare will have an enormous impact on how it comes across when it's finally done. So let's talk a little bit about preparation. First thing. Now I told you the overarching goals for any presentation are insight, retention, and action. But now we're on to your particular presentation. And right now in your mind, think of a presentation that you always give. Like I asked you a few minutes ago. Something that you always give, or one that's really important that's coming up. Think of a specific one. And go to the handout on the second page is this objective and structure piece. Okay? Now this is my little format that I use with people when they begin to put together presentations. Now, the thing about this is it is a structure, but you don't necessarily need the structure to show. A lot of what's on this page is for you to organize your thoughts. It's not necessarily, I'm going to ask you about objective and key message and that. It's not necessarily things I'm going to suggest that you say out loud to your audience. It's just for you to know what's driving your presentation. And it's broken into those 3 parts there because I think that it's important to break it down in your mind. But there's a now kind of old-fashioned idea that a presentation should begin by you saying, here are the things I'm going to talk about. And then you proceed to talk about those things. And then at the end you go, these are the things I just talked about. Now there's nothing wrong with that. That, of course, works. But it's also kind of clunky. So if you want people to just kind of go, okay, this is a presenter, or this is a person who doesn't really know how to do this very well, then you would say those things out loud like that. Say that these are the things I'm going to tell you. Here's my agenda, and there is a more sophisticated way to do it, which is what I'm suggesting with this, is to bury that structure underneath. Like when you see a building, there's girders and beams and everything holding it up, but you don't see them on the outside, right? You see the part of the building that the architect wants you to see. So that's what I'm suggesting is the same thinking that goes behind building a really good presentation. The first piece, though, before you even start putting the information in any kind of format, is to ask yourself what the objective is. Now that's what I have here on objective, okay, the second line there. Objective, when actors are playing a scene. When you go to see the play, you see actors in a scene doing a love scene or doing, a war scene, a death scene. I mean, that's what plays are all about, love and death. Something active is happening in that scene. And because you know enough about theater to know that they are working from a script with lines in it. And the number one thing that people ask at talkbacks after shows, how'd you memorize all those lines? Because, that seems like a mystery. How in the world can you memorize all that stuff and say it accurately? And of course, the answer to that question is lots of practice and repetition. And the truth about actors is that, in any professional actor situation, is that memorizing the lines is just it's a foregone. I mean, you have to do that. Like nobody struggles at it. I mean, if you're playing a part with millions of lines, it takes a while. But you just have to do that on your own time and show up at rehearsal ready to actually work. Nobody works on memorizing the lines in rehearsal. They work on this. They work on finding what the active objective to the scene is. Because the exact same lines, because you can't change Tennessee Williams' lines or Arthur Miller's lines or Tennessee Williams or Sam Shepard's lines. You have to play those lines. But you can say them many, 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 many different ways and get a different result to the audience. Okay? So that's all determining what's driving underneath those words, what's making the words come alive. An active objective. Exactly the same thing as what you would put together for a presentation. If you don't want it to be inert and dull and boring and put everybody to sleep, which I'm assuming you don't want that result. So you look at what would be the active objectives that you can infuse through the presenting material, okay? So here's some examples, and I'm going to ask you to do your own here in a second. So be thinking of your presentation that you really give, because I'm going to ask you to do it yourself. But here's some examples, okay? So here's what a lot of times people, you don't say this out loud, and you might not even think it consciously, but you default to some kind of objective, like this. I want to tell the prospective client about our company. How many people want to hear that one? But we hear it a lot. We hear people go like, they haven't really thought out an active objective, and so they go, well, I'd like to tell you about our company. We do this, and we do this, and we do this, and we do this, and we've been in business for this many years, and we have this many employees, and our office has this many square feet, and we have, the more numbers, the better. Get it in there and tell everybody about your company, and you end up with clients who maybe could have been engaged going, yeah, I don't know, okay, nice, thanks, great, sure, whatever. And they're not engaged because you have told them about something, but it doesn't have energy and there's no engine in it. So how do you take this and make it something that does that, but actually has an active, guts to it? And I'm going to suggest you could do this. I'm going to motivate the prospective client to engage with our company. Now, part of doing that is still going to be telling them about the company. But if you think of it this way, it changes the very nature of the presentation. You might, in the back of your mind, be thinking, well, yeah, I want them to engage. Sure, yeah. But it's not a front burner motivation or objective necessarily until you write it down on a piece of paper. It takes 3 seconds, but it makes all the difference in the world in a high stakes presenting situation. Yeah?
If you change the word engage to buy, I want you to buy my service. How does that change your prep?
Well, that's a good question. I would say to avoid words like buy and that, because it's engage with implies that. You want the client to engage with your company in the form of a sale, okay? But if you start making your active objective, I want to sell you something, they can sense that in 5 seconds. And that's, really it's like we all know the game in a sales situation. We all know something's being bought, something's being sold. But you want to divert their attention off of that and get it into engage with you. Engage with me personally as the sales representative. Engage with our company as an entity that you trust. Those things are bigger and more kind of meaty to hang on to for the client. And in the process of doing that, of course, they will engage your services in a monetary way too. So I would suggest challenging yourself to get away from buy and sell as the motive. Yeah.
When he makes that change, I hear a one-time event.
Oh, right.
And when I hear engage, I hear more of a relationship.
Yeah,
To me,
and
this is much more powerful.
this
Even
is,
though you want the client to buy.
yeah, you want them to engage over time
Right.
with the company. Right. And either way, these are better than saying, I'm going to tell you about our company, which inspires no action at all. It puts a lot on the client to say, okay, now you have told me about this, and now I guess I would like to engage. Is that what you want from me? It leaves them so much slack, okay? So now here's another one. I'm going to walk leadership through the plan. How many want to sit through that? Even if you are leadership. Leadership goes, nope, I got something else going on that afternoon. I'm going to walk leadership through the plan. I mean, boring, it just sounds boring because it sounds like it's going to be this plodding, arduous, logical, predictable thing. And again, there's no, why couldn't you just email me that? If that's all you wanted to do, just send me it. Why bring me to a room and talk about it? So again, to add insight, energy, something that's going to engage them, you just change the underlying motive to be something more active. I'm going to persuade leadership to buy into the plan. So this is the word buy, but buy in, which is more of a mental thing. You're going to persuade you to buy into the plan. Now, of course, in the process of doing this, you're going to walk them through things. But it's just, again, shifting the mindset away from walking through being the whole goal of the whole day to I'm going to motivate you to want to buy in with this, which changes the energy. So now, thinking of your presentation that you give regularly or one that's coming up, write down on the box that says objectives what you will do with this using wait, one more thing first before we do that. I'm going to go through the verbs. This is remedial grammar class here at Abita Partners. Inert objectives have passive verbs. So they are things like, I want to inform you. I'm going to tell you about. I'm going to make you aware. I'm going to cover some things today. I'm going to go over some stuff. As soon as you say, as soon as your objective is, I'm going to go over it, or I'm going to educate you on something, or I'm going to teach you about, it becomes it doesn't engage. So you change the verb, I'm going to inspire, motivate, persuade, energize, excite you to engage with, or whatever, however you want to finish that, okay? So really, changing the words on the page will change how the energy. So go ahead and try that on this box that says objective. And when you've done that, move to the next box, which is, can you summarize the point you're trying to make with this presentation in one sentence? And if you can't do it in one sentence, you don't really understand your presentation. It should be possible to do it in one sentence, the basic core foundation point you're trying to make. So try to do that in the next box. The thinking that I have to be patient?
Yeah.
Am I not being patient?
Oh, no, I think you're very patient.
Oh, good, good.
I saw the smile on your face. And
Well, I smiled because I remember my days teaching high school and how this feels exactly the same. All the children are writing. It's so nice to see them so happy about the work. They all get A's for participation. All right, so let's hear a few of these. Who wants to give me their active objective? I will call on you. I will call on you. So you can raise your hand, or I'll call on you. How about you? You want to give yours?
Well, I'm afraid to give it to you because there are some people here I'm going to meet with, and so this is going to give away my presentation.
You want to whisper it, kind of?
I'm going to excite them about Platinum as a resource.
Okay. I'm going to excite them about Platinum as a resource. Okay, that's great. That's better than I'm going to tell them about Platinum being somewhere that I work. And what's your key message?
Platinum helps companies deal with change and difficulty.
Fantastic. Nice, simple, and clear. Do you feel that sums up what the heart of what you've come to tell them?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. All right, over here, somebody who's got an objective. Yes.
I will motivate our employees to fully engage in company objectives and feel like they have a great job.
Okay, so you're going to motivate them to fully engage with company objectives and feel like they have a great job. Okay. Well, what's the main thing that you want them to do?
Okay, the first part, without feeling like they have a great job.
Because you might fail at getting people to feel things, just from personal experience. You might be better with the concrete objective that can actually be achieved.
Okay. Well, then my main point is actually like the second one. Astra is a great place to work, and each employee has a good future here.
Okay, great. Astor, did you say?
Astro, that's the name of our
Astro is a great place to work, and each employee has a good future here. So that, in a way, helps go to that second half of your objective about making them feel good about where they work. Great. Who else has got an objective? Yes, sir.
We're going to empower you on how to create sustainable profitability.
We're going to empower you as how to.
To create sustainable profitability.
Okay. So we're gonna give them power to sustain profitability. What's your key message? No, that was the objective. Oh, no, he's coming up with it right now, folks. Look, watch this.
Well, it gets more industry specific than the key message then, wouldn't it?
Well, yes, the key message can be specific to a particular presentation. So you might have 5 that you give in your company, and each one can have a different key message. They might have the same objective, actually, but that even might change a little. But the key message can be very specific to a particular presentation that you give.
Well, sustainable profitability through improving operations, supply chain, logistics.
Okay, so what about sustainable profitability? What about that? What are you going to teach them or make them aware of in this presentation?
That it's much easier to lower cost than it is to increase price.
Okay, that's a key message. That's an exciting, interesting key message. It's easier to lower cost than to lower prices. Is that what you said, right? Yeah. To increase price. Yeah. It's pretty easy to lower price. Yeah, exactly. So this is a challenge. It's a little bit of a challenge, but that whole time writing these two things was less than 3 minutes, 3-4 minutes maybe. And it makes you think different, doesn't it? It makes you automatically say, I have to boil down this thing into one point, or I have to boil it down to an active verb that I want to have action with the audience. I can't overstate how important this step is. And it's the step everybody skips because they don't really know about it. So they just skip this and go right along to what's the first thing I'm going to say, the second thing I'm going to say, and before you know it, you've built a whole presentation that doesn't have any heart to it and has such a convoluted, unclear message that people walk away going, that was nice, but I don't know what they talked about. If you have a key message, it's something you can keep repeating all the way throughout if you want to verbalize it, or it can just be something you know and it's inherent in the whole presentation. All right, so move on to the next piece here, which is using a simple structure. Okay, so that's this next part of this page. I'm going to suggest to you that you boil down a presentation to no more than 3 parts. Okay? Part number 1, part number 2, part number 3. I have seen, and we all have seen, a million presentations that try to cover 27 things. And the presenter has done no work on simplifying it any further than that. They have just gone number 1 of 27, number 2 of 27, and it becomes this incredibly unwieldy thing that you can't really wrap your head around, and nobody has an attention span for 27 things, especially in an hour or 90 minutes. They have an attention span for like 3 things. Now, I'm not suggesting that you take your 27 and reduce it to 3. I'm saying you take your 27 and group it in 3 categories. So that when you come out and if you do want to say your agenda, I sort of said mine. I said I'm going to talk about preparation and presentation. So I made it 2 actually. But I'm talking about a lot more than 2 things, right? So you take and you group it into part number 1, part number 2, part number 3, and give each one of those parts some kind of really brief and hopefully kind of snappy title that the audience has the feeling that they're hearing 3 things, even though they're actually hearing many, many more than 3 things. But their brains can wrap around 3, and they can't get around 27. They'll forget it, and if they forget it, then you've lost the connection. It's an important connection that you're making in these presentations. So get it down to 3, and in each one of them, I mean, I would say 3 is the ideal. It could be 2, it could be maybe 4, but never go more than 4. I have a 6-hour presentation that I give lawyers, and it's broken into 2 parts. But it's 6 hours of information, so it's a ton of stuff. But they're perceiving it as being construction and delivery, and that's it. And it's just got many, many facets to it. Okay, so this is under each one of these things. Of course, you have your information, you have all the details and all the numbers and things that you want. But don't forget to put in a story or illustration on each one of them. Now, I know you've had speakers come in here and talk about storytelling, which I'm going to touch on in a minute here too. You got to have stories. You have to have some kind of illustration that points out how this plays out in the real world. And get that in. Make sure that you earmark each side. Okay, I've constructed part 1 and I have all this information in there. You're going to be tempted to say, now go to part 2 and part 3, but stop yourself and say, do I have a story? Do I have some kind of illustration? And then just think for 5 minutes, really, who have I worked with where this part that I'm talking about kind of plays out? Oh yeah, there was that one person, and then write that in. And then you'll remember to tell that story there. And that, I tell you, that's what people are going to take away mostly, is that story, that the story kind of wraps it up for them. So put it in each one of their things. And I would say, don't even deal with your opening and your closing until you get the middle put together. Put that whole middle together with the objective and your 3 points and everything, and then think to yourself, now how am I going to start this thing, and how am I going to end this thing? Because there's this principle, which I'm not sure you know about, but I'm going to tell you about it, the principle of primacy and recency. This is the principle that people will remember the last things you said, or the last thing you said, first. Then they'll remember the first things you said, and they'll maybe not remember anything you said in the middle. Yes, I know it comes as a shock, but people don't listen to every word you say. We'd love it if they did. But this is a study that was done many, many, many times, many, many years ago, where they would give the subject of the study 100 words, or a list of words, not always 100, a list of words, and then they would ask them afterwards to which words do they recall from this list. And they would first say the last few ones they heard, and the next thing they'd say would be the first few words they heard, and they tend to forget the middle. That's what this graph is. The words, percentage of words that were recalled in this hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times they went through this study. And it's intuitively right. This is how TV ads are. They come out, they're like, hey, here's something exciting, or a visual. And then they'll tell you all about the chemicals that go into this detergent. And then they'll say, here's where you can get it. So the beginning and the end are things they mainly want you to remember, and the middle is just if you happen to be paying attention to the middle too. The thing is, most people with presentations reverse this in the way that they put it together. They spend the beginning of their presentation kind of warming up, kind of talking about their own credentials. I hear a lot of that. I'd like to tell you where I went to school and all the awards that I've won so that you believe me as a credible resource for the information I'm about to tell you. This is hugely valuable presentation real estate, this very beginning couple of minutes, that's being wasted on a resume or wasted on company background or something. I have a company that I work with I've worked with them for 3 years, and I still am having the hardest time getting them out of going to really, really high, really important construction bid interviews and not spending the first 5 minutes talking about the background of their company. It's very, very, it's what we think people want to know first is all of the background. They don't care about the background. I mean, I hate to break it to you, but they don't. They might care about the background after they're engaged with you, after they care about you or the company. You can just send it to them or have them look it up or say it really quickly in the middle. But don't spend the very beginning talking about the background of your company, because that's the part that's the one chance you get to grab their attention. That's what they're going to remember in the gut level. And then the very end, you want that to be something that where you're asking them for action, or you're wrapping what you said up with an illustration that really captures the essence of it, because they're going to remember that a lot too. But most people warm up at the beginning, they put all the good stuff in the middle, and then they kind of drift off at the end and say, any questions, anybody? I don't know. Are we done? And the whole thing kind of peters out. And we get this arc that we've all felt as audience members at these presentations that doesn't really work. So take some time and think, once you put together the middle of your presentation, think, how am I going to start this with a bang? Okay? I would remind you that movie screenwriters and directors, they know this principle pretty well. So good movies, like the classics, I'm going to show you, 2 here, Indiana Jones, the very first Indiana Jones movie. Does it start with like the background of Indiana Jones and how he became an archaeologist and where he grew up and how many credentials he has? No! They start with a scene with him trying to steal this thing. Remember, he's supposed to pull a little and put that little bag of sand on there. And then he runs and this big ball's chasing him and it's going to crush him. That's in the first couple of minutes of the movie. Do you want to watch the rest of this movie after that? Yeah. And then they get you into the background of how he got to be who he was. It's obvious for arts and entertainment. I mean, we don't even, Romeo and Juliet, written over 400 years ago, starts with a huge street fight. Because Shakespeare knew, you got to get the audience to care. You don't come out and go like, there once was a boy named Romeo who's kind of a dandy and he falls in love a lot. I mean, people are going to be like, I don't care, I want a beer. But he starts to show with everybody fighting in the street with swords and getting killed and, their arms being ripped off. And people go, I care about this show, whatever this is. So you have this. You have this classic first scene. It's a quieter first scene, but we all remember this first scene where it's this Bonacera, this guy asking Don Corleone for some help. And Don Corleone says, well, you show me some respect. And it ends with him kissing his ring, and then we go, and Don Corleone decides to help Bonacera. And we've learned in just a couple of minutes that this guy's really important, and everybody's afraid of him. I think I care about this story. But again, the book doesn't even start with this scene. The book starts with a lot of other stuff before we get to this scene. So the movie says, and this was a movie that when it came out, people thought it was going to tank, and it had a lot of bad stuff going on. Francis Ford Coppola knew that he needed to get his audience invested immediately with these characters and this story, or it was going to be trouble. And so he puts this scene first. And incidentally, this is totally tangent, but you know that where he pets the cat in this scene? Improv'd on the set. Francis Ford Coppola just found a cat walking around on the lot and let it loose in the scene, and just to see what Brando would do. And he picks it up. The thing is rolling, and he just starts petting the cat, and that's why that cat's in the scene. And there's, iconic. There's T-shirts of Brando petting that cat. It's so iconic, but it was just improv at the time. So anyway, that's a tangent. I think it's interesting. So start your presentations with something as gripping as The Godfather and Indiana Jones. That's all I'm saying. It doesn't have to be. Those are classic legendary things. You don't have to be like that, but you have to think like that. That's all I'm saying, all right? So once you've got your stuff together, you want to start thinking about what stories can I tell that are going to be engaging. Stories are absolutely the best way to get information across to people because it forms mental images in their mind. Numbers do not. Images do. Mental images. Talk about people. Talk about something that happened to people. Okay? And a story can be very, 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 very simple. It can be very complex, like The Godfather or Hamlet. But basically, at its heart, a story is just really simple. That a character or characters exist. Something happens, and they are changed by it. That's all a story needs to be. Very, very, very simple. It can be a story, a fully intact story can be told in 60 seconds, okay? Or it can be hours and hours, but you don't want that in a presentation. So if you have, think right now, and I'll even give you a chance to write this down if you want. We won't ask around really, but if you're giving a presentation sort of like the one I'm giving now, that's at an event where it's about showing this is what we do in our company, think about, well, what type of client are you looking to engage with? And then think back, do you have an example of a client just like that in your experience that can be your protagonist? And then you can think, what's their obstacle? They were facing some kind of obstacle in their business or in their personal life, and then, of course, they came to you to solve the problem. So, for example, I worked with a guy named John Houston. He's a polar explorer. So he came to me after having been he and his partner were the first unsupported expedition to the North Pole. Unsupported meaning there was no dog sleds, there was nothing. They had to pack all their stuff, leave from the nearest landmass, and cross what ended up being 50 miles from there to the North Pole. They were the first American unsupported expedition. The story is unbelievable. Every single day, 50 below weather. And they did this. So he has this story, and then he said, I want to go around and speak about this story because I think it could be an empowering speak, but I have no idea how to do that. And he was kind of afraid of it. He thought, I've tried to talk about it before, and people just get kind of bored, and I don't really know how to make that happen. And so I took the time to read the book that he wrote on the story, to listen to him over and over and over again on the phone and live, talk about the story. And I helped him shape this into a presentation, which now he gives all over the country and empowers people to believe in their dreams and do things. It's not a story of how to be a polar explorer, because who wants to do that? It's how, whatever it is, whatever your North Pole is, believe in that and you can do it. So we turned it into sort of a motivational speech, which now he gives all over the country. So that's That's one version of that for me. What's yours? You've all got 1, 2, or 3. Make sure that you earmark them, write down the bare bones. Who are the characters? What's the obstacle they faced? And how were you the solution to their problem? And then you've got a story. And people will engage with you by listening to your story, okay? So the stories are the stories about people experiencing things in life are ideal. But I know some of you are looking at me saying, well, sure, I can do that, but sometimes I just have to give the numbers. Sometimes it's just got to be about the numbers. I'm going to suggest to you that there's a way to do that that's also exciting, okay? So watch this. You can make the data come alive. It doesn't have to be a story about people, although that's ideal. But when you've just got, you go to presentations, and a lot of times this kind of slide pops up. And you go, oh boy, I can't wait to hear what this is. And I'm going to talk to you all about the total retail sales for fiscal year 2006 and 7. I'm going to talk about the number. And you're not even going to look at me because you're going up there, what's on that screen? Oh, but I could give you this slide. If you've never seen that slide before, I could pop this one up. Check out that empty space. What are you wondering? What's going to happen? Right? What's going to happen in the empty space? That's the first thing that's about stories, is they have to make you wonder what's going to happen. Every TV show knows this. They end each episode, or even before each commercial break, with something that makes you wonder what's going to happen next. So you can do that with a list of numbers if you want. Leave off some of them. So we say, okay, well, I'm going to talk about how there were 2,788 retail firms in 2006. 2007, it was 2,691. Now, what are you wondering? What's that? Did the next year go up or down? Because now we see there's a downward trend. Now if I say, well, you know, in 2008 it went to 2000. Oh my goodness! What are you wondering now? Is it going to keep going down? You can't wait to find out. And I'm going to keep going. Oh my God, look, it went down again. And again. And again. And now, of course, the whole time I'd be talking about telling, you know, why this is and my theories on it and my insight. Now we're going to go over here to this column and go, look at that. Sales per firm were 379, 866 that year. She's back there going, ooh, just about as good as Indiana Jones, isn't it? And then check it out, look at this. Oh, it went up again, even though the firms are going down. It's unbelievable, you guys. And I can keep going and telling this story and unfolding this thing in front of you. These are real. I don't even know what this is anymore. I got this about 3 years ago. But it doesn't matter. You can take whatever you've got, and if you look at it for a little while and go, how can I make this into something that will engage there? How can I hold some things behind the curtain and not give them away? And unfold them in a way that makes an audience curious. That's how they're going to, on something as dull as this, potentially dull as this, they could be sitting on the edge of their seats, can't wait to hear the next thing you're going to say. And that's all, really, it's all just, these are theatrical techniques of getting audiences and getting people to sit up and take notice rather than let things be inert, okay? So, like I say, a story with people is the best. But a story, you can tell a story by just denying the audience certain information until you want to dole it out, okay? Then there's jargon. We hear a lot in presentations, we hear a lot of blah, 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 acronym, 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 as if the audience is supposed to know this stuff. Now, of course, if you know for sure that they know the acronyms and for sure they know the jargon, then of course speak the language with each other. But often, especially in networking things like this, you don't know that. Everybody comes from different places and you don't know what language they know. But you might end up with, these are from a financial presentation I gave last year for financial advisors. Tell that to your client who's, you know, got $1 million of investments with you, and they go, okay, you know, if they're not going to say, I don't know what that means. They're going to go, okay, yeah, I need to take that under advisement and think about that. And they're not going to let on that they don't know. But is there an easier way to say this? Is that accurate? Cliff's like laughing his head off back there. This is just speaking, trying to speak in their language more, without being disrespectful, but just saying, like, without using the term yield curve, let's just put it in language that possibly everybody would understand. Or something like this. Now a client could go, I think I know what you're talking about. I know the word asset and I know the word allocation, and so I can guess what you probably mean. But why not just tell them what you mean? Talking about eggs and baskets, which they for sure know about. Okay? And reassuring them that we're doing something that's in their best interest. Because these are real things I got from the firm that I did a keynote for last year. I said, you got to give me, what are things that your people might say? And they're like, well, they might say something like this. And just breeze past it and start talking in financial jargon. And the client's going, I what? And then why should I care, and blah, blah, blah. This tells them what you're talking about and why they should care in one fell swoop. Bam. Takes a second to do this, but it's time well spent. One of the biggest things that I hear, I'm just going to pause for a second. One of the biggest things I hear when I start doing my soapbox about you got to prepare, you got to put together this 3-part thing, and you got to change your jargon. Well, I don't have any time to do that. Where am I going to find the time to do that? I have real things to do. And it's up to you, of course, how you spend your time. But I'm saying a little bit, these little steps take very small amounts of time, and they have a massive impact on comprehension and ultimately retention of clients, retention of their attention, you know, and ultimately whether they engage with you or not. That little bit of time can be a big boon to you in the long run, okay? Speaking in plain language. You all can do it. Can someone give me an example right now of, can you off the top of your head, think of something from your industry that's jargon? Yeah. Use it in a sentence. Can you use it in a sentence?
We're going to protect our proprietary intellectual.
Oh yes, that sounds so very important, doesn't it? We're going to protect our proprietary intellectual capital. Now, what's a way to say that in plain language that makes the client say this matters to me?
We're going to protect the way we do things, our internal, I'll struggle with that.
We're going to.
Just, for me, it's an extremely overused phrase that just kind of drives me crazy.
Intellectual capital, because what is it? Yeah, what would be the way to solve that one would be to, instead of trying to come up with another general term, come up with a specific example of intellectual capital. What would that be? Ideas, patents. I mean, things like that are intellectual. We're going to strive to protect the patents and our blank and blank and blank to make sure that we are serving your best interests somehow. You know, I mean, that's what you want to. Analytical process. Right. Yeah. Yeah, something like intellectual capital. There's a lot of these jargon terms that make the speaker feel very important and very smart, which we all like to feel like, very smart, because we've used these fancy terms. But they don't mean anything, you know? Someone had one over here? Yeah.
My favorite one is overused is thought leadership.
Thought leadership. Yes, I want to be a thought leader. Yeah, you go, well, that you could be, what, the Dalai Lama? You want to be the Dalai Lama.
I'm signed up for that.
Yeah. So these are kind of like generic business terms that are overused. There's also just like the ones I gave there, yield curve and things that are very micro-specific to an industry, but are not common language. Always go for the common language and always go for concrete rather than abstract. Something like thought leadership is so abstract, we can't get our hands around what it even means. And always challenge yourself to speak in terms that matter to the client, okay? Now I say this because we don't have much time, so I'm just kind of generally talking about it. But these are things that can be unscrambled in a matter of minutes, and they make such a difference for how whether your listener is sitting back in their chair or sitting up in their chair. It really, these little things do have that effect. All right, so now the second part here, performance. Once you've got your whole presentation together, and it's all been either written down, some people like to write it all down, some people like to write it in bullet points, somehow worked out so that you know where you're going with your presentation, the day comes to actually give it. So some things to think about first when you're getting ready. Have you noticed how I haven't been behind the podium at all? There's often a podium or offer of a podium to be used. Say no to it. Because what happens when a person speaks from here? How do you feel different when I speak from here rather than over there?
Barrier.
There's a barrier.
You're the judge.
I'm the judge, right.
You don't want interaction.
Don't want interaction. This thing has has a lot of baggage attached to it. We think of it as being somebody who is, it's like an award ceremony. It's formal. It's like you say, a judge. There's a physical barrier, and it's of course easier to have notes sitting on this than not. But who said this was going to be easy? It doesn't have to be easy. It has to be well done and engaging. So always find room find a space. This one happens to be like anchored down with really big bolts. It won't move at all. I have tried. So it has to sit here, but often you can take the podium and just push it to another part of the room. And then you have this wide open space, and it feels more like we're having a conversation. It feels more open and flowing. If you need to use notes, this is such a simple thing, but everybody doesn't think of this. Put the notes in front of you. So did you notice when you came in here, this is mine. And I had this on that chair because I don't want someone sitting in that chair. Because I wanted to have the opportunity to I have a couple of notes from the beginning that I was using right here, just a little bit, on a sheet of paper in front of me. Otherwise, I would have had to go, okay, the next thing I'm saying is this. And all of a sudden, I don't look professional, and it looks like I'm not on top of my material. You can use notes, but the simplest thing, just keep them find a surface that they're in front of you rather than behind you. And ideally, your laptop with the PowerPoint should be in front of you too, so that you can see the next slide that's coming up and you barely glance. Sometimes on huge, big stage keynotes that I do, I actually put in black Sharpie, like white paper with black Sharpie, put them on the floor. The audience can't see it because the stage is higher than their eye level. And I can just be walking along going, yep, next thing is this, and yep. And they don't even know I'm doing it. It's like a band has a set list, down taped to the stage. It's like that, except without the beer. Consider alternate seating arrangements. So sometimes you're locked in, like this room is like this, but if you have the flexibility to put people in a semicircle or in circular tables, if you have that opportunity, use it. Because we are all culturally hardwired in this arrangement to think of it as 7th grade, to think of it as, well, it's algebra time. The teacher stands in front, and I sit at my desk, and I get kind of bored. So we're already wired in this arrangement to think that way. It's not terrible, but something besides this tends to make people go, hey, wait, something's happening? And they're more awake when they start, okay? All right, so real quick, some things on just how you use your voice and your body, all right? So somebody say this sentence out loud.
Please sit down.
Who was that? Who said that? I didn't see. Okay, so he went, please sit down. With that vocal inflection, what's going on? He's irritated. Who's he talking to, maybe?
A kid.
A kid? Okay, please sit. And does it feel like it's been a while? He's been asking for a while? Okay, somebody else say this with a different vocal inflection.
Please, sit down.
Please, sit down. Who is he talking to with that vocal inflection? Adults? A client? He went to a higher register. Please, sit down. It was an upward inflection, already in a higher register with a slight pause after the word please, which seems to indicate I'm making an effort to be polite. Okay? You went, please sit down. Ah! And it was louder. So we got all kinds of cues from that. Somebody say this sentence. Listen to me. Okay, now, on a scale of 1 to 10, how invested is he going to be in the next thing he's going to say? 9? Yeah, I mean, he's listen to me. I got a thing to say here. And what do we maybe infer from that tone that happened leading up to that? They weren't listening. He's overcoming some kind of obstacle to what he was meaning to say, right? Somebody else say it a different way.
Escúchame.
Well, there's always one in the audience, With the words on the screen, the line that the playwright has written, somebody say this.
Listen to me.
Listen to me. Okay, now what's the next thing he's going to say? Listen to me. Something logical? Yeah, we can rip out your backyard, no problem. I mean, it's something that he feels is easy, and it might be easy or it might be something that isn't, because it was almost in a whispered tone. So with 3 words here and 3 words here, 6 words altogether, we've gotten a whole array of impressions about what was meant, who is being spoken to, what led up to that saying those words. We got all that out of just a couple of times through it. And this is with no information in the words. Listen to me and please sit down. There's no information in these words. It is actually what you say before the thing that you say that has the information. But yet we got all those impressions out of it. That does not stop happening once you have information. But people tend to flatline their information. They go, I'm going to say everything in about the same tone down here. It's just going to be kind of a mumble like this, and I'm going to talk kind of quietly, and it's never really going to get out of this register. And especially in the Midwest. I mean, I'm from the Midwest, so I can say. Like I say, the lips get all tight together. Hey, how you feeling? Good? I'm feeling great. I'm feeling bad. I'm really sad. I'm really happy. Nothing changes in the Midwest. So we need to give people more variety because they're going to pick out, like I say, people do not listen to everything you say. But they do tend to listen to the things that are emphasized or de-emphasized, or when the vocal tone changes, they re-listen. So some things to remember is that all these things I'm talking about are what actors would call subtext, or you know the word subtext, meaning something's going on beneath the words. You want to manage your subtext. So in a play, I might have on the script, it might say, I like you. The line for my character is, I like you. And I may deliver it like this. I like you. Now, what do you believe? What do you believe the truth is? The words I said or the way I said it? The way I said it. Every time that wins. Or, gentlemen, you might get this from time to time. Honey, how do I look in this? And then you find yourself saying, great. Is that going to work? Is that going to work? No. The 3 hours, that guy's going to be sitting there going like, I said great. The word I said was great. It was great. I meant it. But you know it wasn't meant because of the way it was said. This is just human nature. We tend to believe the way it is said over the word. So if you act like the information you're telling is dull, the listeners go, I guess it's dull. If you act like it's interesting, they'll go, I guess it's interesting. It's simple as that. And that's just communicating the subtext. So here's some things that really get in the way of communicating subtext, okay? Communicating a good subtext. The CHOP, regardless of the project delivery method, our focus is on providing the best value for the budget. We believe the most successful projects are those that start with collaborative planning and communication from the very beginning. Have you heard that vocal tone before?
Obama.
Yeah. Well, I say, politicians, it doesn't matter what side they're on, they may be okay at the beginning, and then they get elected and it just gets worse. This thing happens more and more and more. They must have advisors being like, chop it up as much as possible. I don't know. But it does not lend itself to comprehension. And actors do the same thing. To be or not to be. That is the question. This is why Shakespeare is 4 hours long. It's just chopped up. The nosedive. Regardless of the project delivery method, our focus is on providing the best value for the budget. We believe the most successful projects are those that start with collaborative planning and communication from the very beginning. And you know that next sentence I'm going to say is going to do the same thing and end up kind of down here. Or end up in this sort of younger person's thing, vocal fry. It starts up on here and then it kind of just is down here in this kind of growly area for a while like this, and just kind of here like, hey, you guys want to go to the mall today? It's a really awesome, that growly thing, do you know that one? That's getting to be the more contemporary version of what used to be the next one, question speak. Regardless of the project delivery method, our focus is on providing the best value for the budget. We believe our most successful projects are those that start with collaborative planning and communication from the very beginning. Okay. Awesome. So that's that upward inflection says, there's subtext between all of these. How many question marks are in that? None. But every time I did a vocal inflection of a question mark, it implies subtext. And the subtext that's being communicated is, I don't really know what I'm talking about. Do you guys like me? Is my hair okay? So if you have somebody that's trying to communicate authority or confidence with the product or service, you don't want that vocal inflection. Now, I did an exaggerated kind of teenager version of it, but it creeps in. I hear it mostly in opening comments on the phone. Hi, this is David. I'm calling with ABC Company. Just wondering if this is a good time to talk right now. Now, in that thing I just said, there was only one question, but I made it sound like 3 questions. Hi, this is David. I'm not really sure this is David. I don't know who I am. I'm with ABC Company. I don't really know where I work. Is it okay to talk? And each in 10 seconds, you've told the client that you're not really that confident. And they have an opportunity to kind of think to themselves, I don't think I have time for this right now. As opposed to downward inflections. Hi, this is David. I'm with ABC Company. Is this a good time to talk right now? Bam, bam, bam. And it has a strength to it and an authority. And I'm not going to say it's going to guarantee they're going to want to talk with you on the phone, but you stand a better chance, you know? All right, so then the body, finally here on the body, when you're standing and you're standing up in front of an audience like I am right now, there's an odd thing that happens, which is that they are seeing more of you than you see because your head is on top of your body. Write that down. Your head is on top of your body. So because your head is on top of your body, you don't see what's going on down here. So all kinds of weird stuff can happen. And that's how we end up with people kind of doing this, just kind of, you know, shuffling around, hands in pockets, shoulders hunched, or just walking around like this. Or, do you have a pen? Can I? Yeah. You're just about to do that? I want you to pay attention to everything I'm saying really closely. Are you having a hard time doing that right now? Because this is happening? Yeah, you can't stand it. I'm asking you to split your brain, split your attention between the words I'm saying and this fascinating twirling pen that's happening down here. And this is a stage principle, actually. This, what I'm doing right now, is that the eye will always go to the moving object. If I stage a play as a director and I have an important love scene happening downstage that's key to the plot or something, I cannot have like a waiter walk across upstage, you know, or some extra. I can't do that because the whole audience will go, huh? We're all little kitty cats inside. We can't resist. We can't resist watching the moving object. We can't stand it. Something's moving and I'm missing it, you know? So, but the thing is, I can't see that I'm doing this. My eye line is up here, so I can't see this. So this kind of thing happens, or like you said, the clicking, and it drives people nuts. So you want to find for yourself a nice standing up position where you're looking alert, not hunched over. There's a big difference between walking around like this, right? I'm confident, I've standing up straight, and this. Like 6 inches difference in my shoulders, and all of a sudden it's like, no, you guys, seriously, take me seriously, really. I know what I'm talking about. And if I take the voice out too, I'm really an authority on this subject, and I know what I'm talking about. Seriously, come on, you guys. So stand up straight, get, you settle into your really strong voice, and it can make the whole presentation come alive. And you always want to know what's going on with your hands, because the thing is now I present a lot, so my hands tend to be always in action, like talking hands. They're always moving around. A lot of people have trouble with that, and their hands end up, these appendages, which are so useful in other parts of your life, become this burden. And what do you do with these terrible things that I'm afflicted with? And you have to find kind of a parking spot for them. So sometimes, like the first one, open fingers like this, just standing with your hands like this, what I call the infomercial. But it's good, it works. And it kind of parks your hands here, but not clasped, because as soon as you clasp, then if you need to gesture, you can't. And I seriously have seen people do this. They get into this, and then they want to gesture, and they start going like, punching people in the face. So loose fingers so that when you do gesture, it's just naturally, gracefully comes out of it. Or hold it, the second one, light contact, holding the hands like this a little bit, where you can just gesture out of that and go back to this little parking spot, but not this. As soon as I'm doing this, there's a story going on down here. The story says, I'm not cool with this. I don't want to be here, you know? But I can't see that I'm doing this, and it just happened. So loose fingers, this loose fingers, always talking, although if you choose this one, you have to commit entirely. You can't be like, yeah, no, I'm that good. I can use my hands all the time except for this part where I have no gesture. Oh, here's something I need to gesture. Ah, reanimation, yay. Or the one-handed version, which is this last one here. One hand is kind of doing the talking and the gesturing and resting here. The other one stays still by your side. But I will caution you, if you do have to hold a piece of paper for this one, this last one, you want the still hand to be holding the paper rather than the talking hand to be holding the paper. And we see this, you know. So you choose a resting position, and then a couple of things. Once you're in front of the audience, make sure, now I have not been able to move around very much in this room because of this being here and because we're shooting it on a video today. And because these are, the projection is there when I'd be walking through the projection. But normally, without all of those restrictions, I'd be using this whole space over here, walking over here sometimes and walking all the way over there sometimes. People need the visual to change in front of them. Find the power position in the room, which in this room is like right here, where you're triangulated to the whole room. With this here, I have to kind of change it to this, like this. But every room has a power position, and often people don't find it. They tend to hug the tables like this. And now if this is weaker, or they're way too far away, or they're buried behind something. So find that power position, and make sure to not be reading the slides, but actually looking out at the audience as much as you possibly can. I'll leave you with the idea that the more you practice this stuff, the better you get at it. It's like everything else. No one is born with a clicker in their hand, you know, and a PowerPoint behind them. You have to practice to get it to be good. And I'm going to give you that chance. I have on your sheets, on your tables there's this half sheet. I would love to talk with each one of you for a little while on the phone or in person, just free, to find out what it is that you're dealing with your presenting, or seriously, the people you work with. If you've got people that you work with where you're like, I'm good, but they're not, let's talk about them. Let's talk about those people. So give me an email, get a phone call. We just find a time to get together and talk. I ultimately do work with people in very short bursts or over a long period of time. We can work on reconstructing everything you do in your presentations, or just spot check a couple of things. So I want to be a resource to all of you. Fill that out, and if you want to do it, bring it up here and put it on put it right here on that, right there, and I'll take them and contact you later, okay? So, I know we have a hard stop. Mike's always like, hard stop at 9:30. So here we are at 9:30, and I'll be around for a while if you want to talk. And with that, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Remember, June is off. We'll see you again in July. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Cliff.